as a victim of slavery and a victim of a long war in my country, I feel very humbled to share the detail of my enslavement, how I was captured at age 7 in 1986. I remember that evening when my mother came to me, she approached me while I and my 2 siblings and friends from the village playing underneath our mango tree. And she came and said, Pule is my African name. And I said, yes, Mom. And she said, I want you to go to local market to sell eggs and peanuts. And I kind of first said, no. And she said, did you say no? And I immediately stood up and I said yes, not no. And I told my friends, I'm leaving for just a short time. And if I come home late, I will see you tomorrow. I heard people shouting for help and seeking for exit. And there's no exit. Nobody to help. And this militiaman from northern Sudan who actually get their weapons from the Sudanese government in Khartoum, who gave them guns and sent them to the southern Sudan to go raid village and kill the men in particular and capturing women and children. I became a victim of slavery from that day, and I served Juma Abdullah for 10 years, attending his cattle. I was actually forced to sleep with the animals. I was forced to take care of the cattle by myself. I was beaten daily. I have no freedom. I was totally isolated and dehumanizing.
My story is in Sierra Leone in West Africa, where I grew up in a place that was very safe. I grew up in a very small town in the south of the country. We didn't have electricity or tap water, but we lived a very simple and remarkable life. It's a very strong sense of community, where your neighbors were your family members and everything of that sort. But this changed, this sort of simplicity and the beauty of that life. And I went to school as well, Sierra Leone being a former British colony. Learned Shakespeare, and I was introduced to American popular culture. But all of this simplicity and this remarkable life changed when the war started in 1991. We started hearing people coming from the eastern part of the country speaking about what had happened to their families. We could not believe that that was possible. We just, there was a country where I grew up in. I was born in 1980, where I had never seen such a thing or heard of these kinds of stuff, except in the neighboring country, Liberia, where there was a war. And so we thought, oh, these people are capable of that. We are not at all. Eventually, the war reached my part of the country when I was 12 years old, and everything I knew as a child changed very abruptly and tremendously. Now, when the way war affects you is that when you're attacked, when a town or village is attacked and you hear gunshots, you could have gone down the street to the store and you hear gunshots, your life starts from there, that next chapter of your life. Whatever you're wearing, whatever you're carrying, that's it. You cannot go back home, there's chaos, you lose family, everyone runs away for their own lives. So, but I had gone to a talent show when the war reached my part of the country, and I was separated from my family. But the dynamics of this culture began to change when the war reached. A place where once as a child, your innocence was celebrated quickly became a place where that same innocence was now feared deeply. Because what had begun to happen in Sierra Leone is that, which is not new to a lot of people from Colombia, is that a lot of children were being dragged to fight in the war at ages from some of them as young as 9, 10, to mostly under 18. And a good number of them were kids who had been orphaned, who had lost all families. The way they were indoctrinated sometimes was they were forced to actually kill their own family members. It could be mother, father, or sometimes to destroy their own towns and villages and kill elders in their communities, things that were unheard of in this culture. So when adults who had survived these experiences, when they saw children, they no longer saw them as innocent people. Rather, they feared them deeply. So when I was running from the war, it was very difficult to function. You would not go through a town anymore, a place where once you would go there and people will feed you, take care of you. That was no longer the case. People feared each other tremendously. There was this distrust. And as between the age of 12 and 13, I had seen so much death, and I had also lost my immediate family. I was the second born in a family of 3 boys, and my 2 brothers were killed in the war, and my mother and father were also killed in the war. So I went from having a family to not having any at all, immediate family, to losing everyone. And this didn't only happen to me, it happened to thousands of children in Sierra Leone and around the world, where this is a big issue, the use of children in wars. And I was distraught. I didn't know what to do with myself. We ended up going to a military base. A few friends and I that I was running with, thinking this would be the safest place to go. It was there we were forced to fight. There was no choice. It was either you joined or you were killed. Even when you were part of the army and you fought, if you didn't carry out orders that you were asked, you were killed. So in the beginning, we feared being part of this group. But with the coercion and also with the tremendous use of drugs, with constant violence, we lost ourselves completely to the point that we no longer had the capacity to even exhibit certain human emotions.
Now that you say about the complication of a lot of people not really understanding what was going on, in this case in Sierra Leone, how difficult and how did you manage your inclusion into a regular American society?
When I came here and I would say to people, this was in 1998 when I started living in the United States, and now people ask me, where are you from? Once I spoke, and I would say I was from Sierra Leone. A good number of people had no idea where that was. And there I am thinking to myself, you know, well, there's a war that has been going on there, you still don't know about it. So it really did bother me quite a lot. It was very frustrating. And I had to describe Sierra Leone by way of Liberia, which most people knew about. So, you know, it was very difficult to even explain to people where you're from. There are also cultural differences. And to begin with, if people don't know where you're coming from, they have no understanding of your culture, then they assume a lot of things about you, you know. And those assumptions can be quite devastating. Sometimes they be quite dangerous. And so what my role was basically try to explain to people where I was coming from, you know, what my background was. But in the beginning, not to talk about the war, not because I was ashamed of it, but because I wanted people to see who I had become before learning about my past. So one funny example I'll give you is that the idea of friendship from where I come from. If somebody is your friend, they become your family. That you can show up to their house whenever you like. I quickly realized in the United States that wasn't the case. You had to call somebody, even if they were very close to you, to visit them. You know, if they were your friend, you can just show up at their house and eat their food. They had to offer it to you if they could, you know. So where I come from, all these things were not, you know. So it was difficult to sort of navigate the cultural terrain.
Also, and Francis told us a little bit about how did you escape your slavery?
When I attained the age of 17 in 1996, I said, I'm not a 7 years old anymore. I'm not a 14 years old. I'm a grown-up man, and I can defend myself. So on my last final attempt, I was very successful. I ran away around the same time in the morning, and I've been running. You're talking about all these wild animals you see on the National Geographic channels. I had come across and comprehend them just on the same river. I see tiger, I see lion, I see all kinds of animals. They just stop, they look at me, and I look at them, and then I have my water and run. And I ran all day in the bush and in big forests until I reached another town called Mutari, where I went to the police station. I thought they would help me, but they kept me there working for them for 2 months. I ride 2 donkeys to bring water, filling up these 2 big containers with water. And I kept asking them when they will rescue me, when they will actually help send me to my family or be with the people that I communicate with them in my native language. It never happened. So I realized that they were also using me, or somewhere they also enslaved me. And this is the police. Because slavery is pretty much illegal in Sudan. The government doesn't say anything about it. They know it is happening. There are people who are doing it. He's the one encouraging it to do. So I escaped again, and with the help of this lorry driver, a truck driver, Abdurrahman, he's a northern Sudanese and Muslim from northern Sudan. And I was amazed how he has actually agreed to help me, because it is quite dangerous for him to help a slave. But he hired me in his lorry, and he brought me to Dan, one of the big towns in northern Sudan, near to Darfur, near to Janina and Fashir. And I've been to this area, Janina and Fashir, you know, take care of the cattle. So, and he's the one that paid for my train ticket to make my way to the capital, city of Sudan, Khartoum. I began to speak out, you know, for the victim of Darfur. I rally out. I'd been on radio, national television, talking about the issue of Darfur. And of course, I said another best way to really help bring these people together is to reconcile them, to really work with the grassroots organization who are working to build the grassroots reconciliation of peace and forgiveness. And I joined 3 years ago a very excellent organization called Sudan Sunrise. And this is one of the things. The director of Sudan Sunrise is here, one of a man, Sawayero. Of course, the great people who work for him, Dr. Abdel Jabbar, and actually the director of the organization, Reverend Tom Pritchard, is here actually sitting. And I joined them, and we traveled several times to Sudan, helping and bringing Darfuris and Southern Sudanese together. I even brought about 5 Darfur into my village. When they go there, they go to steal, to kill. But we brought them there first time. We sat down with the people in the local, and I told them, they are not our enemies anymore. They are our brothers and sisters. And we should reconcile. We should forget where we wrong each other. We should now seek for a solution rather than complaints and holding hatred. So, and reconciliation really contributed to a lot. And this is why this event, which started 3-4 days ago, very special, because you have all the powerful people, politicians and advocates and victims like myself, coming together, working towards solutions. And reconciliation is the only way. And you could use example of South Africa. It become a great nation because there are people who really thought that the best way to bring together and break the cycle is to reconcile people. Let them have peace, love. And I'm honored to be presenting with this wonderful people, and I look forward for such a great session again in the future to come.
Thank you.